Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to this exciting pre-release look at the DC Design Concorde for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're going to fly this aircraft around the pattern eventually, but the main point of this video is to have a look at the external features, the internal features, a tour around the cabin, and pretty much an unboxing of what you can expect when you purchase this aeroplane. Anything I mention or reference in this video, I'll put a link for in the description below. But of course, as it is a pre-release look, the caveat applies that this may not be fully representative of the final product. Things may be changed, removed, added, etc. What you do get in the box, you'll get this aircraft with this livery, and you will also get two flight plans, an outbound and a return for London to Barbados or London to JFK. Now that we've gone through all the preamble, let's have a look around the outside. We're already ready for pushback. I'll be demonstrating more on that later. The exterior model looks fantastic. The engines particularly look brilliant on this lovely Saturday morning. I have to say, I never realized the Concorde has a little tail wheel, but it makes sense. I don't believe there are any flaps on this aircraft, so it's just high alpha on the approach. About 12 degrees nose up is what you can expect as you make your approach. The aircraft itself obviously has 4 times afterburning engines, but it doesn't use them for supercruise. It doesn't need the afterburner, and that's where the fuel balance and the fuel system comes into play, because you need to keep this thing nicely balanced in order to enable minimum drag, maximum speed. The developer is not developing this as a study level aircraft. I should have mentioned that straight off the bat. So based on the price point, it's $39.99, which is the same as the FlySimware C414 that was released yesterday, I believe. And I bought it. I've had a look inside it. It looks amazing, but of course the Concorde is taking all of my time at the moment. But this is obviously a big, complicated aircraft, and the FlySimware is a very small GA plane, but same price point. So it is not going to be a PMG or a Flight Sim Labs type fidelity aircraft, but it is a very complicated beast that if you want to fly well, you'll have to dig into the manual and fly it by the numbers. If you want to take off and just have some fun with it, you can do that too, but it has all the flying characteristics of a real Concorde. Other features of the exterior, and I'll hang around the nose cone later, is of course the drooping nose, the famous drooping snoot, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. But I think that's enough of the outside. How about we jump inside and I'll show you around there. Here we go in the cockpit. I'll put track IR back on. They've done a great job in texturing this as an old aeroplane. I've done some camera layout. So I've done a camera file so that you can have presets 1 through 0 or 0 through 9. For instance, here's the captain's seat. Here's the co-pilot seat. Here's the engineer's seat. I mean, look at all those switches. One of the primary jobs, I believe, for the engineer is to balance the aircraft in terms of that fuel. But you can also ignore this, not bother, and just fly around. So don't worry too much about the amount of switches. It depends how detailed you want to get into it. So that is the engineer's seat. There is a door, of course, that takes you into the cabin, and the switch for that is down by the left-hand knee. Here it is, and that will open and close that door. I guess the next thing we should do is go have a look around the rest of the aircraft. So I'm just using a mouse to drag the look, and then the numpad to walk around. So it's a little bit clunky, but it works just fine. Very nice galley. If you need the restroom, feel free. Just make sure you leave the lid down. And not the most luxurious cabin, that's for sure. But then it was never intended to be. The only thing this aircraft was intended to do was go really fast across the Atlantic. Around the aircraft, there are a few Easter eggs. So we've got some books, and I'll produce another video for an excellent Easter egg that I found, but I don't want to ruin that just yet. So there's a slight spoiler alert, and I'll put a link for that video when it's released. Champagne if you want it. That is the cabin. And just walking all the way through to the flight deck. Nice. I think we're getting to that time where we should push back and start up. So let's jump into this seat. Now, I do not know how to start this thing up. There's a lot of coordination from flight engineer, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to action the pushback. I'm going to Control E. It'll start itself up, and we are good to go. So let's go for that. Okay, so for pushback, I'm using the Ambitious Pilot's Pushback Assistant, where you can pre-plan the pushback. And if you haven't seen that before, I can left-click and scroll around where I want to move. I can mouse wheel to rotate the aircraft. The green aircraft is where you want it to go. And I'm going to place it on this taxi line here. Left-click once and press Enter. That is pre-planned.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by. Okay, sir. The bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed.
The parking brakes are set. You may lift.
Parking brake set. Lifting the aircraft.
Nice.
We are cleared for start and push.
But let's start her up. Why are you there? You shouldn't be there. I'll figure that out in just a second. Probably not the best place to stand, right behind the engine as it's starting. It sounds great. Ah, good. That guy's disappeared. Maybe just a bug with the camera setup that I've used. Anyway.
Ground. Startup is complete. You may disconnect.
Roger. Good engine start. Cleared to disconnect. See you at the side. Have a good flight.
And we are off. Now I mentioned the droop snoot. So let's put it down to 5 degrees. This lever on the right hand side, or it's the flap keybind. It takes a little while. I think we take a right here. There you go. So pilots will typically have this set to 5 degrees of droop so that they can see whilst taxiing, and then they'll put it back to up when they're in the parking. And of course back to up for the takeoff. Very easy to taxi on the ground, not a problem at all. Okay, this will do. Now I'm here, I'm going to put the snoot back up. For the takeoff, we will accelerate up to 170 knots, rotate, unstick will be 200 to 220 knots. We'll keep the afterburner lit until we get to 250 knots, and then we'll pitch about 11, 12 degrees nose up, maybe a smidge more to hold 250. We'll aim for about 3,000 to 4,000 feet downwind. Parking brake is on. Put some lights on. That squawk is down here. We'll just set something appropriately, and I think that will do for the takeoff. Now, a little gotcha that I had is you need to make sure that you have your throttles bound so that you get all 4 engines working for you, because when I did it, I had 3 engines bound, so I was doing 3 engine takeoff, which took a while. We're clear takeoff. Let's do this. Percent N2, brakes are holding. Check the temperatures, pressures. Looks like a little car crossing the runway. Thanks for that. Yes. So I believe you have to action the AB using the afterburner toggle switch, so make sure you've got a binding for the afterburner. 170 knots, rotate. Bit high on the nose up, positive brake, gear. Burners out, and I'm already up to 320 knots. Nice. Let's bring that power back. That's probably because I let my attitude drop down because I was too busy looking outside the airplane. There we go, that's through 2,000 feet. Now we'll do a left turn. Looking really, really nice. So for us, let's have a look at the approach speeds. You will need to be very familiar with the landing weight and VREF page of the manual. So for 140,000 pounds, which is what we are, approach speed is 182 knots, which is considerable. I'll bring it back down to a more reasonable pattern speed and altitude. In terms of flying it, it's really simple. The roll rate, it feels like a heavy airplane, which is great. It's not too pitchy, so this is me kind of full forwards, full aft. It handles like a heavy airplane, which is really nice. Yeah, let's start bringing it back towards 220 knots. And listen to the whistle of the engines. That's not the sound effects they're adding. Okay, here we are lined up with the runway. Let's drop the chute. Let's drop the gear. This is coming down 1,700 feet, looking for 182 knots. Classic shots. Okay, the gear is down, the nose is down. Approaching a bit faster, maybe even a bit steep. I'm not an airline pilot, nor have I practiced this type of approach much, so don't berate me too much. ...200 knots. A little bit fast. It's really important to land this aircraft on speed, otherwise you'll float due to the ground effect. Happies look good, 2 reds, 2 whites. Speed looks good. Going a little bit low. Here we go. Now I can't get the reverse thrust to work with my key binding for reverse thrust. But with an on-speed landing and just toe brakes, it comes to stop nicely. I'll put the nose up to 5 degrees for the taxi, which is there. I will exit to the left. Well, that was a flight in the Concorde. It was great fun. I enjoyed that. It's difficult to fly. Like DC Design suggests, it is easy to fly, but difficult to fly well. The level of detail that you choose to go into ultimately decides on how many of these switches you're going to need. But like you saw from me, who doesn't fly airliners a lot, it's more than possible. So don't be phased by it. If you're on the fence like, oh, I don't fly complicated aircraft, don't worry about it. I play with the lights, I play with the nose, and that's kind of it. But for those of you who want to do everything by the book, you can do that too. And for the price point, $40, £28, it is more than reasonable. An excellent price point given what you get for your money. So if you've got any questions, put them in the comments below. I'm happy to do another video that covers off other things. Well, looks like that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more of this, and don't forget to smudge that like button and subscribe. Even the notification bell will keep you up to date on the latest releases. Until the next time, very excited for the Concorde. Look forward to you joining me for the next one.